Hello, folks. This is Gonzo coming at you. It's been a while. It's been quite a while since I've actually made video of content, and I really missed it. I've had some all kinds of issues that caused me to not make any videos for a while. I had some surgery, and that laid me up for a bit, and then I kind of really, I've almost run out of new content to make. But in the past year or so that I've not made anything, I've come up with some new stuff that I can start doing. But I've also just the ammo crunch hit, and I've been trying to work on that a little bit at a time, and I've started getting pretty well set up on that too. So I'm ready to start making some new videos, and I've got a friend of mine I've met. He's into long range shooting. He's really good at it. He's a right young fella compared to me, but that's all right. He might be young, but he's real experienced, and he knows what he's doing. He's real good at 1,000 yard shooting and beyond, and he's very knowledgeable about all aspects of it. And I've got to talking with him the other day, and we've decided to make a video series, and he's going to start his own channel. His channel is going to be called the Long Range Syndicate, and he's probably making it as we speak right now. I don't know, but as soon as I'm able to, I'll post a link to it in my video. And but we're going to make a series. We're going to start with this rifle right here and that scope. We've already filmed the first bit, and that's some scope mounting and the details of how to go into and precision mount a scope on this rifle. This is a Savage Axis 308. It's basically a budget rifle, and I've never really done any long range shooting. As a matter of fact, if you've been following my channel at all, you know that even at 100 yards, my shooting's not real great. But he says he can take me, who's not a great shooter, take this basically cheap gun with this is an Arken optic scope. It's a budget friendly scope, budget friendly rifle, and teach me how to tune all of it to make a very accurate 1,000 yard shooting gun. And so with that said, we're going to make a whole video series, just me and Cody, and he'll be on here in a minute, and he'll introduce himself, and we'll begin the series. Thank you, folks. I'm glad to be back.
Hello YouTube, this is Cody and Kenny with Long Range Syndicate, coming at you with our first video here. Just to introduce ourselves, my name's Cody, this is Kenny. As far as I go, I'm a long range shooter. I've been shooting long range for about 12 years now. I've shot out to 2,200 yards, 1 mile, pretty much every weekend. I'm out at the range shooting 1,000 yards. There's only 2 weekends this year that I haven't shot 1,000 yards. I would consider myself a pretty experienced shooter. I've shot F-class a little bit. I've done some PRS matches. I would consider myself pretty knowledgeable on the subject. Right here we have Kenny. Kenny's he's a novice shooter. I'll go ahead and let him introduce himself, tell you a little bit about himself.
All right. I'm Kenny, and I've never really done any long range shooting. I've been shooting pretty much all my life, but you know, it's all short range stuff, anywhere from 50 to 300 yards at the most, and most of that just holding over and hoping I hit. Never really used the turrets on the scope to dial in anything. I just zero it out and just basically set the scope on there and tighten it down, zero it, and go. And so Cody's going to try to teach me the basics on getting me out to where I can shoot 1,000 yards. And we kind of picked this gun here. This is a Savage Axis It's a budget gun. It's cheap, so we're going to try and get it with this Arken scope. We've already got set up on here. It's we're going to try and get it to where we can shoot this budget gun. It was way less than $1,000 out to 1,000 yards, and Cody will tell you more.
Versus something like this, there's probably 2,000 sitting right there. We'll see if they can both do the same thing. This is a Savage 10 right here. I mean, a Savage 12 LRP chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor. A little bit of gun work done to it, but not much. But we're gonna take these two rifles out. The main topic of this video is, or this series, we want to go ahead and try to see if we can get basically a combined $800-900 setup to shoot 1,000 yards. One of the things I've always wanted to do is just take a budget gun through and through and see if I can get it to do the same thing as something a little bit more expensive can do. I'm not expecting it to outshoot this rifle by any means, but I would expect about a minute of angle accuracy at 1,000 yards. And me and Kenny came up with this idea a few days ago. We was just sitting there talking, and Kenny's been shooting with me a little while, but we was just talking, and he said, y'all do video showing a new shooter how to take a budget rifle and shoot 1,000 yards. And I thought that was a really great idea. Kenny loves shooting. I love shooting. I love talking about shooting. So if I can share it with anybody else out there in YouTube land, then I'd be happy doing that. So stay tuned. We'll show you how we set up our scope and everything. We're going to be going in detail on everything we're doing through this process. Everything from mounting the scope, load development, testing velocities, testing seating depths, going to the range, testing groupings. It's going to be extremely detailed. The things that we show you, a lot of channels kind of miss out on that, and I think we're going to try and really give the novice shooter a lot of insight that they may not get anywhere else other than going to the range and talking to people. And I'm pretty excited to try this. I think that it's going to be really informative to newer shooters or people who've been shooting a long time like Kenny. They just never got into it. Once you get into it, you'll be hooked. So everybody stay tuned. Stick with us. We'll show you how we set up our scope on this rifle. And thanks, everybody.
I'm excited to learn. And see you next time. Now.
Okay, guys. First thing we want to do, setting up a rifle, we obviously want to check it, make sure it's clear. Make sure there's no brass or live rounds in that chamber. And usually, just for giggles, I'll dry fire. But we're clear. All right. First thing we want to do, and this is a big mistake that a lot of people make, is leveling up your rifle. What we have here is a Wheeler leveling kit, and I think I bought this for maybe $40 from Academy Sports. This thing really makes things easy as far as leveling up a scope. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, but I like this method the best, and it gives me a whole lot of confidence, and that's very important for long range shooting. Let's get a close up of that. All right. Now, first thing we have to do, we have to get a base level. You can do this with a straight edge on the bottom of the scope, but this is how we're going to do it today. And I've tested this method and and it works, I promise you. All right. I'm just going to get a rough level. So make sure I'm level. And perfect. Now that we've got the level from our receiver, or action, we're going to go ahead and set your front level on the barrel. And usually while you're putting this thing on, the level right there at the receiver, it'll come loose and you'll have to play with it a little bit, but no big deal. We're just going to get it close because we have a top adjustment right here for fine adjustment. Okay, we'll go ahead and check again. We're good and level back at the receiver. Now we'll go ahead and cinch this down. And then we'll set our front level. Looks pretty good, don't it? Then we're going to come back and check our front, because we are moving this gun slightly every time we adjust it. Check it again. Make another small adjustment. That's perfect. At this point, we'll go ahead and take off our receiver level. That thing's good and tight. It's not going to come loose. We'll put that up. Now, we'll go ahead with our rings. These are Arken rings, just like the Arken scope here. I like these rings just for the simple fact they got the Torx on them. I've never had a problem with them. I've shot out to 1,000 with them. No problem. Good rings. We'll go ahead and set our set screws on the left-hand side of the rifle, just so they're out of the way of the bolt knob. Now this is just getting a rough idea. I'm going to adjust these and move them back and forth and check them against my eye and make sure that we're all good. Now normally what you want to do is you want to have the rings as far apart as possible. If these rings come up to the belt, then you're going to have problems, I promise you. You might damage the glass in the scope, or possibly tighten them too much, and then you can't get an adjustment out of your turrets. There's all kinds of things that can happen. So I can see that we can bring probably one more slot out of this. Okay. So I'm comfortable with that right there. All right. We're going to go ahead and we're just going to put our top rings on, just very loose, just enough to where you need some resistance to move the scope left and right to adjust your level. That's going to happen about every time you mount a scope. All right, we're going to get our torque wrench, and we're not going to tighten anything down for sure yet. We're just going to go ahead and snug things up a little bit, but you want to be able to move this scope left and right. But just make sure you have your threads attached. I'm getting out of breath doing this. Kind of leaning over too. We can probably fast forward this portion. Okay. Now, one of the things we want to make sure we do is, if you ever notice on a Picatinny rail, you've got some play in there. Now, what you want to do is, before you tighten up your base, you want to push your base forward, because this recoil is going to send the rifle back, and your scope mount is going to want to resist that. And if you've got your scope mount back like that, it can slide forward.
That's good to know.
So I'm going to push forward on this as I'm tightening it down, making sure it keeps a solid connection.
Are you torquing it now, or?
No, I'm not torquing it now.
Okay.
I'm just making sure I've got them. I'll do that in just a second, but I'm just making sure I've got them kind of snugged up to where they're not going to move. All right, now I'll go ahead and torque these down. The torque for these is 30 inch-pounds. If you don't know how to use a torque wrench, it's pretty simple to learn. I'm sure anybody would be glad to teach you how to use a torque wrench. Okay, we'll go ahead and torque these down. And you want to maintain a consistent pressure with this. You don't want to just try and snap it as fast as you can. A lot of people ask me, do you use Loctite on your threads? And no. If anybody's ever used Loctite and strip screws out on scopes, it's pretty easy to do it because a Loctite acts as a lubricant on the threads. So you've got, let's say, 18-inch pounds set on your torque wrench, but with the lubricity of the Loctite, it allows you to tighten a whole lot more because your screws aren't having the same resistance as they would if they were dry. So just make sure you degrease them real well and you shouldn't have a problem. Go ahead and get this right. At this point, we'll get our other level again. We'll set this on here. And you don't want to set it on that screw because it's going to be unlevel. Make sure you have a flat surface. I've seen a lot of people use just a flat edge on the bottom, and that works great. It works excellent. This is just the way I'm going to do it. It's pretty easy to set up, pretty easy to understand. Okay? So we'll go ahead and just make sure it's flat. We're going to look towards the front of our rifle. Make sure the rifle is level. And it is level. Now, we're going to adjust our scope. And that's level. Now we make sure that they're both level at the same time. Just a little small adjustment there. Okay. All right. Now, this is the step that can really get you in trouble. A lot of people, they'll get these ready, and then they'll tighten down the screws all the way, and they'll check their level again, and it'll be off. You do not want to do that. Just take these and get these just to where you can feel resistance. Right there. I feel resistance.
Is there any reason why you're going from that corner to this corner over here?
Just like a tire, you don't want to tighten down one side at the same time. Each time you tighten down these screws, it's going to pull that scope to whichever side you're tightening down, which is why I'm stopping each time I feel resistance, because I do not want to pull that scope any. It takes very, very, very little pressure from these rings to secure that scope. All I'm doing is getting it to the point to where tightening it down on the opposite side isn't going to pull it to the opposite side and cause us to be unlevel and then have to loosen everything up and redo it again. All right, checking level on the front. I'm good up there, and I'm good right here. So at this point, now, I'll go ahead and set my torque wrench. 18-inch pounds, close enough, right? Mm-hmm. And when you see these rings on here, a lot of people think they have to go to 18-inch pounds. That's more of a max than it is a minimum. Scopes nowadays, they're made out of aluminum, and everybody knows, if you know anything about metal, aluminum is a heck of a lot weaker than steel. So you might egg the tube on your scope, and that wouldn't be very good for the reasons I outlined at the first of this video. Okay, I've got everything kind of pre-tightened down. I'll go ahead and tighten to 18-inch pounds. I'm trying to keep my wrist and my arm straight so I keep the same amount of pressure on the torque wrench.
That one seemed like it was a lot more.
It just wasn't tightened down as much as the other one when I started. See, like that right there? Okay, now recheck level. I'm going to go ahead and get our front level, and it looks like we're good. Alrighty. So that is how you mount a scope. And you can get into detail with it as much as you want. But just remember one very important thing. The more accurate your mounting job is, the more accurate the corrections on your scope are going to be. If you have a tilted reticle, and let's say you miss 2 minutes to the right, you're going to have a real big problem getting the adjustment for that 2 minutes, because instead of adjusting straight left and right, you're actually going to be adjusting diagonally because your scope is tilted. All right. And I guess, Kenny, do you have any questions on this? What's up?
Your eye relief on the scope when you put your head down here, is that, have you checked that to see if that's about right?
Yeah, what I've done here is I know exactly where I want my eye relief at, but normally before you tighten down your screws, you're going to want to get behind this rifle and check your eye relief to make sure it's not uncomfortable for you. If you have to tilt your head too far back or lean really far forward in the rifle, you'll go ahead and check those things. And once you get that right, then you'll level, tighten screws, just like we did.
Okay. Otherwise, I guess we're pretty much done with putting the scope on. Now we got to get out and do some shooting with it.
Yep. We'll go, our next video on this, we'll actually show the load development. We're going to use Sig Sauer brass. We're going to use IMR 4166. It's a temperature stable powder. It should be just fine for this. I'm not expecting a negative value accuracy from this rifle as far as minutes of angle goes at 1,000 yards. But I am expecting it to hold about a 12-inch group at 1,000. I'd be perfectly happy with that. About a minute at 1,000. I'd be really happy with that. There comes a certain point with rifles like this to where you're kind of limited to the equipment, and we'll find out what those limitations are with this rifle. But the scope I have complete confidence in the rings. The only question I would have is, are we going to run into any stringing with this rifle? Because I've checked this with a dollar bill, and that's really not far enough clearance, but it is free floated dollar bill width right now. But we might do some inletting on the stock just to, with a Dremel or something, just to give us some extra room. Because if this barrel starts heating up and trying to move one way or the other, then we'll have to do some adjusting on that. But right now, as is, this thing, I've got confidence in it. So, till next time.